New York is finally ending its emergency rental assistance program, but landlords may be stuck with no rent payments and tenants they can't evict. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting topic for you today, and it's going over the New York State Emergency Rental Assistance Program. So, as I have covered before, basically, emergency rental assistance program in New York is out of money. Okay, they ran out of money a while ago, but they wanted to put protections in there for tenants who applied for the rental assistance. So they made it so that these tenants can't be evicted. So if you applied for rental assistance, you can't be evicted, even though there's no funds in the program for landlords. So what does that mean? That means that landlords have to keep you in the property. You can't evict those tenants, and there's no money coming for them, as rental assistance. This is a complete joke of a program, and you know what? I can't believe that they even implemented this because it just seems so illegal. It's obviously, and I'm gonna quote the Constitution here. It is a unconstitutional taking of private property for public use without just compensation. Very simple, right? But you know what? The people in New York, they don't seem to understand that. These politicians, only thing they're cared about is getting more votes, okay? They want to remain in power, and the best way to do that to them is by getting all the votes of these tenants. See, we helped you. No, the only thing you did was help yourself, and you bankrupted a lot of good landlords who ended up stuck with non-paying tenants. So you know what? I don't agree with them even doing this garbage, and it just pisses me off when I see it. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think, okay? Are you surprised that they finally closed this program and said, hey, no more tenants can sign up for rental assistance, basically preventing them from ever being evicted? I'm surprised. I actually thought for a while they were going to just leave that thing open forever, okay? So they were able to create a backdoor eviction moratorium that lasted way beyond the end of the actual eviction moratorium by doing this. So, I don't know if this is kind of the unofficial end to that, but you know what? We'll see. So let's get into this article. This article is coming from therealdeal.com, and it says, as rent relief portal closes, shafted landlords consider suing state. Small owners hope for class action inspired by Brookfield-Lafrac suits. Yeah, and if that is the only way you can get your money back is by suing the state, then that might be the way you have to go. I mean, honestly, if you have had a tenant in your property for years on end, you've never received any rental assistance money, and the state isn't allowing you to evict them, then it might be cheaper to go the legal route, pay lawyers and go after the state. So anyway, let's get into this article. New York will finally shutter its emergency rental assistance program Friday night, closing a loophole that allowed non-paying tenants to delay eviction just by applying for a relief fund that's been mostly dried up for more than a year. The state's Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance, which administers the program, said it had clearly delivered for the people of New York. A pat on the back that ignores the untold number of landlords whose tenants have pending applications and thus will continue to receive eviction protections despite the unlikely possibility that more funds will ever come. Absent little direction from the state as to what will become of the more than 17,000 applications still pending, small landlords plunged into financial distress are considering litigation. So yeah, they have 17,000 pending applications, right? And those people still can't be evicted at this point in time because they applied after, and after I believe they ran out of money a year ago. And so you have 17,000 people who aren't paying rent and are just staying for free. Now, is this what they intended by the program? Is this what was intended to happen? Because if it is, then it's completely unconstitutional, and they need to go after these people who put this crap into place. But you know what I personally believe? I believe it's incompetence, okay? Laziness, incompetence, and, greed by politicians, by bureaucrats who think they know everything and basically are putting landlords into financial distress. So I've read all sorts of stories of why people are just frustrated with the state of New York and specifically with New York City. But we always think about, oh well, you know what? It's a landlord in New York City, and you know what? Most of the landlords there are super rich. Well, you know what? There's places other than New York City. There's Buffalo, there's Rochester, etc. Right? And the properties there are cheap. The rents there are much less expensive than in New York City. So when you have a landlord there, they don't necessarily have to be a multi-millionaire or a billionaire to own, a couple single family houses in Buffalo. Okay, you can just be an average person. You could even be a low income person and be a landlord, and you're losing your income. You're losing that money that was coming in, and now you're forced to pay bills for tenants who haven't paid rent in a very long time, and that is what's wrong. That's why I say we need these lawsuits to basically tell the government never to do this garbage again. That's why I said back when the eviction moratoriums were going on, we need to have this thrown out by the Supreme Court. We need to have this found unconstitutional. And unfortunately, that isn't what happened on the state level. States were allowed to decide when these things ended on their own. And you can see what happened, right? There's still eviction moratoriums going on right now. Here it is, January of 2023. This whole nonsense started in March of 2020, and there are still problems with all of this stuff going on nearly 3 years later. Okay, everything else is open back up. Landlords still haven't been compensated all the money that they've lost. No suit has been filed to date, but conversations with landlords and rumblings on Twitter suggest that property owners forced to house tenants on their own dime for years in some cases believe they are entitled to restitution. I imagine there will be lawsuits against the state for this unpaid rent, said Ann Korchak, a spokesperson for the landlord group Small Property Owners of New York. New York closed the courts, made our lease contracts meaningless, and created an underfunded, poorly designed portal, she said. 2 lawsuits filed late last year by much larger landlords could offer a framework. Like I've said before, all the rules they put in place to punish the big landlords, they always end up affecting the small landlords too. So when I hear, the small mom and pop landlords railing against the corporate landlords, I'm like, hey, listen, in the eyes of the public, in the eyes of the tenants, you and that giant multinational corporation are the exact same thing, okay? You're a landlord, so you are evil. So don't think for 1 second that they're ever going to be on your side. They're not. That's why we have to stay together. We have to fight with these corporate landlords. We need to hop onto their lawsuits because if they protect themselves, right, they will help protect us as well. Okay? Brookfield Properties in Lafrac, which own thousands of apartments in the city, filed separate complaints in November alleging the automatic stay on evictions provided by ERAP was unconstitutional because it violated the landlord's right to due process. Lafrac claimed it was stuck with over $535,000 in unpaid rent. Brookfield said it was out more than $150,000 in arrears that extended well beyond the 15 months of rent that ERAP is authorized to cover. The suits showcase how disruptive that amount of debt can be for a large owner. For small landlords, the impact can be disastrous. Yeah, I've told you stories about landlords who ended up bankrupt, landlords who ended up homeless because of these things, right? ERAP, the Emergency Rental Assistance Program in New York, only provided 15 months worth of rent in total. So if this thing has been going on for 3 years, that's 36 months. That means that landlords can still be out over 20 months of rent and have received ERAP. So you can't tell me that that's not an unconstitutional taking. Okay, it is. So I hope that this lawsuit, it gets some traction. I don't know what's going to happen up in New York. Even the judges and the courts up there are very left-leaning, very liberal, and very anti-landlord. So, but, there is a chance that this thing could be pushed all the way up to the Supreme Court, and that would be the best thing considering there's a conservative Supreme Court right now. June Margolin, a Long Island homeowner and landlord advocate, said she and her husband are $60,000 in debt on just one unit due to lost rent, legal fees, and damages. She expects it will take them a decade to dig themselves out. if they manage to keep their house. Shane McCarthy, a small landlord who missed out on the short-lived landlord rental assistance program, said he was more than $100,000 in the hole as of January. Man, those are big numbers for people who own like one house to be down 60 grand in damages and lost rent, etc. So basically, they've turned you into a homeless shelter. You are the homeless shelter for those lazy, good-for-nothing tenants who are in your property living for free. And what are you supposed to do? If you get your house foreclosed because you stop paying the mortgage payment, well, that ruins your credit. That makes it even worse for you. Okay, so they're probably sitting there. They're continuing to make their mortgage payments. They're continuing to pay their utilities, taxes, insurance. They're continuing to do maintenance because it's the law that they have to continue to do maintenance on the property, whether the tenant is paying or not. So yeah, they got screwed over by the state. They got screwed over bad, and they can't evict this tenant. And now they're stuck. So yeah, there needs to be a lawsuit. There needs to be some suing going on. And I would love to see all of the landlords in the state compensated for all the money that they've lost.